The Last of the 20 by J.N. Wdowski. For your full enjoyment, be sure to read or listen to the end. Chapter 2. Sherwood. The sun was beginning to set behind him. He decided to get off Route 1 to see if he can find a place to hold up for the night. He entered a side road of single-family suburban homes. Looking up at the beat and weathered street sign, he could make out the name of the street Sherwood Drive. Sherwood, he thought to himself. Robin Hood's Sherwood Forest? As he walked down the silent street, it was clear that the woods had reclaimed most of the once manicured lawns and flower beds. The street that once had children playing on it decades ago was now silent and partially overgrown. He wondered what it must have been like to live in such peaceful times. A time when children could play carefree until the streetlights would turn on at dusk. It signaled when they should return home to sit down for a hot home-cooked meal and share stories of their day with their parents and siblings. He entered one of the homes. His short-range sensor showed that the building was clear of all life and was still of sound structure. Making his way up the stairs, he found a corner bedroom with a bed that was still made under a layer of dust. Slinging his weapon, he lifted the bed quilt and shook out the dust. Locking the door, he dropped his gear at the foot of the bed. His backpack was at least full of supplies that should last him a fortnight. He cursed himself for not at least grabbing hold of Gilbert's energy packs, but realized he had no chance of doing so. If he had not fought his way out, as he did, he would not even be alive to regret anything. Lying down on the bed, he observed his surroundings. He assumed he was in what was once the bedroom of a boy. He noticed what he thought were movie posters on the walls. A desk was in a corner stacked upon it were some old notebooks and textbooks. He tried to imagine the very different childhood this child must have had than his. The only thing this child of the distant past needed to worry about was getting good grades on exams. As for Miller, childhood was boot camp from before he could remember. Genetically engineered or not, their training was harsh and punishing. They didn't have to only learn the basics this suburban child needed, but more importantly, technical skills, weapon skills, combat skills, and survival skills. They were elite, manufactured soldiers to attempt to reclaim for mankind a world that had reverted back to its primitive nature. The Chinese astronomical losses in blood and treasure due to its dragged-out Taiwanese war of reunification led to unexpected historical levels of domestic unrest. Too many families had lost their only grandsons to a war that was not being speedily won, as the party had promised. The Chinese Communist Party could not fight the coalitions of nations that came to Taiwan's aid and maintain domestic security against their own people. The majority of the large Chinese navy rested at the bottom of the Taiwan Strait and South China Sea. Their air force and air bases were decimated. Their missile forces were depleted and industry destroyed. Their massive ground forces, able to establish a few beachheads on the island of Taiwan, were being slowly whittled away over time and were being pushed back into the sea as their supply lines disappeared. In a last-ditch effort to turn the tide of the war, they released the virus on the winning Western and East Asian populations that sided with the defense of Taiwan. The Chinese government had tailor-made a bioweapon that surgically affects those with non-Han Chinese DNA. Unfortunately for the Chinese, things did not go as planned as the lab-created virus quickly mutated, affecting also their own population. Secretly, the American government had already set up 10 strategically located underground complexes throughout the United States. These complexes were supplied with enough resources and facilities for several thousand well-connected families to survive for generations any massive assault, being nuclear, chemical, or biological. The virus at first did work, as it was designed to. It spread like a wildfire through its targeted populations, killing quickly most that it infected. Those few that did survive the virus mutated into what Miller and his team referred to as the prune faces. The original deadly virus did not survive long due to the fact it was too effective. By killing off its host too quickly, it killed itself off in the process. The mutated version, though, did survive and flourished in most fresh water sources. It did not kill rapidly like its original version, but instead changed its host to suit its needs for survival. The infected humans became extremely sensitive to light, only able to venture far on the surface on moonless nights. The mutated virus more seriously caused rapid aging of the human body, resulting in the extreme wrinkling of their skin. Prune faces. They learned that boiling the infected waters did not kill the virus. The only way to rid the water of the virus was by distilling the water, much as one would process seawater into drinking water. The first night that his team had ventured out of the shelter to reclaim and secure the surface, they were attacked by the prune faces. Only half of his command saw the next morning. 3 days later, they had made it out of the city, losing more and more of his command to the virus, or to being killed by the mutants. He rejected the idea of retracing his route back to the underground complex, knowing the denser populated city was impossible for him alone to survive. His only hope was moving out and away from the more populated areas. Under Yale University was another survival shelter. If he heads towards New Haven, and with luck, he may be able to hook up with Reclaims Group 3, or at least make it to their shelter. This time of year, he should have at least 10 hours of daylight per day to travel. Walking to New Haven from where he was now, Sherwood Drive in Larchmont, New York, it should take him a bit more than 2 days to reach New Haven. That is, if he doesn't have to fight his way out of any more situations, as they did to get out of the city, or come across any unforeseen obstacles, like downed bridges. Having set up a movement detector at the stairs, he knew he was safe for the time. Having a plan for the next day, he closed his eyes, letting a long-deserved sleep come over him. He woke with his helmet beside him, giving off a low chirping sound. He had set the alarm to go off just before the sun rose in the east. Getting out of the soft bed, he checked his gear and carried it all out the bedroom. Picking up his motion detector and placing it in his pack, he headed down the stairs. He searched the house for anything he could use for his long walk. In the back of the home, he discovered a sunroom behind the large kitchen that overlooked an overgrown garden. He took the time to sit at the table and opened a ration pack for breakfast. He watched through the dirty windows as the sun rose, and birds and squirrels swooped down upon the unattended garden, feeding on what the early April garden still had to offer. He imagined how peaceful it must have been to sit here with a hot cup of coffee, with fresh cream, and looking out at the garden when it was well maintained by someone that must have had a green thumb. He noticed a set of strawberry bushes already bearing with some ripe fruit. Blueberry bushes were also in the garden, but would not bear fruit until August. It must have been nice, he said to himself, standing up and throwing the weight of his gear onto his back. Leaving the suburban home on Sherwood Drive in Larchmont, he made his way back to Route 1, US 1, the Boston Post Road, the King's Highway, which it was originally called during colonial times. Looking east, he began his long trek to New Haven.
To continue, please like, share, comment, and subscribe.